Recall in statistics that the 5-number summary represents 5 different pieces of information about a distribution for a quantitative variable that can be used to describe an awful lot about the distribution itself. And that 5-number summary includes the minimum value, the maximum value, the median, the first quartile, and the third quartile. Recall that the median indicates that 50% of the data once put in order from low to high or high to low, 50% of the data falls below and 50% of the data falls above a given value. The first quartile indicates that 25% of cases in a sample fall below the first quartile, and the third quartile indicates that 75% of the cases in your sample fall below the third quartile. To find this information, Excel has 2 different functions it has created. The first being the Quartile.Inc function, and the second being the Quartile.EXC function. Now, as far as what inc and exe refer to in this case, I've seen actually 2 different explanations. One being, as we'll see in a second, that the Quartile.Inc function allows you to compute or find the minimum and maximum values using that function, while the Quartile.EXC excludes finding the minimum and maximum values. Another explanation for those 2 different subscripts that I've seen, which I really find more interesting and more useful, is that using the Quartile.Inc function, that once you find the second quartile, it then excludes that second quartile or the median value from finding then the first quartile from the cases below the second quartile, and excludes again the median value from finding the case that is the median or the third quartile for the cases above the median value. In comparison, the Quartile.EXC, what it does in essence, it finds the median value and then, discarding the median value, asks what is the median value of the cases below that median value. So it does not include the median value for finding then the first and third quartiles. And later on in this tutorial, I will show you the 2 different algorithms that are used for the Quartile.Inc and Quartile.EXC functions here in Excel, and give you illustrations as to what we mean by including or excluding the median when finding the first and third quartile. In statistics, the 5-number summary represents 5 pieces of information about a quantitative variable that can be used to describe the general shape of a distribution very easily. That 5-number summary refers to or includes the minimum value of a quantitative variable for a sample, the maximum value, the median or the second quartile, which refers to the value below which or above which half of the data fall, the first quartile, which refers to the 25th percentile or the value below which 25% of cases in a sample falls, and the third quartile, the value below which 75% of the cases in a distribution fall. We can think about the first and the third quartiles in essence as medians for the lower half and the upper half of a distribution for a quantitative variable. What I'm going to demonstrate here is how we can use Quartile functions in Excel to generate that information. Now, Excel actually has 2 different Quartile functions, one being the Inc function and one being the EXC function. The Quartile.INC function generates first, second, third quartile values, also the minimum and maximum values, while the Quartile.EXC function generates only the first, second, and third values. Then to complete the 5-number summary, we would have to use the max and the min functions in Excel to find the minimum and maximum values for that given variable. Now, as to what the INC and EXC refers to in each of these function names, I've seen 2 explanations. One being that the INC refers to that particular version of the quartile function allows you, or does include, finding the minimum maximum values, while the EXC version of the quartile function does not allow you to find the minimum maximum values, hence it excludes minimum and maximum values. The second example, the second explanation rather, which I actually find more useful and interesting, is that the INC function includes the median for finding or computing the first and third quartile values, while the EXC version of the function does not include using the median when finding the first and third quartile values. Later on, if you're interested, you can continue watching this tutorial and I'll explain what I mean by that with an example. But for right now, let's go through how we actually use these two functions to find the 5-number summary. For the Quartile.INC equal Quartile.INC, open parenthesis, highlight the data range that contains the variable information for which you want to find the minimum value, comma, and now you notice there actually are 5 possible options that you can choose. We're going to just, after the comma, enter a 0, which means the minimum value, close parenthesis, and hit return. The minimum value for exam 1 data for this given class, hypothetical class, is 65.8 points. To find the first quartile value, equal Quartile.INC, open parenthesis, highlight again the data range, comma, and now I'm going to type in a value of 1 for the first quartile, or the 25th percentile. So 25% of cases fall at or below a value of 76.2 points for this exam. Do the same thing for the second quartile, which also is the median. Highlight the data range, comma, and you now see the options. I'll choose 2, close parenthesis. Oops, what did I do there? Choose a value of 2, close parenthesis, and now hit enter. I'll do the same thing for the third quartile, Quartile.INC for the function name. Select and highlight the data range for the variable, comma, and now I'll type in 3, close parenthesis, hit return. And for the fourth quartile, or which really is the maximum value, equal, again, Quartile.INC, open parenthesis, highlight the data range, return now. And now I can easily compute the interquartile range, which is the third quartile value, first quartile value. And there you have it, the 5-number summary that we've gotten just by using the Quartile.INC version. Now let's go ahead and demonstrate how we use the Quartile.EXC function here. And I'm just going to generate the first, second, and third quartiles, which are actually all that we'll see that the EXC version allows us to generate. So equal Quartile.EXC, open parenthesis, and highlight the data array, what cells contain the information for which we want to find the first quartile of, comma, and you notice the options now are 1, 2, and 3. Let's go ahead and generate 1, which is the first quartile value, and hit return. We'll do the same thing for the second quartile. Comma, and now we'll choose a value of 2 for the option for generating the median or the second quartile value. And then lastly, for the third quartile value, using this function, we choose a value of 3 and hit return. Now if we went up and tried to generate then, or find rather, the minimum value for exam 1 here using the Quartile.EXC function, I'll show you what the error message is that is returned. And let's assume we use the same option as 0 that we would for the INC version of Quartile Function. And we'll do the same thing here for trying to find the maximum value. And again, it's going to give us that same error function. So what we're going to have to do here now to find the minimum value is I'm just going to enter in the min function. Hit return, and now I have to use the max function to get the maximum value for our set of data here. And this is how, let me go ahead and I'll do the interquartile range also. So this is how we can generate then the 5-number summary using the functions in Excel. But let me go ahead and just delete then the information for minimum and maximum values under the Quartile.EXC column heading, since we didn't actually use that function to generate that information. Now, just looking at the quartile values that are generated by both of these functions, that being the first, second, and third quartiles, one of the things that you'll notice here is that the second quartile, the median, is the same for both of these functions. But there are slightly different values for the first and the third quartile values. One of the things that you will notice is that whenever you use the Quartile.Inc function, it will, if it's different, will have a higher value for the first quartile and a lower value for the third quartile. So that means then that the interquartile range will be slightly smaller than what we'll see if we use the EXC version of this function. Now, why is there that difference? Well, while there is an agreed upon definition as to what the second quartile refers to and how we go about finding it, so any statistical package would generate the same value for the same set of data for the second quartile for the median, as we'll see that both of these do here. There is not an agreed upon definition as to what the first and the third quartile refers to and how we go about actually finding those. And it's for that reason then you see that we have two different results for the first and third quartile using each of these functions. What in essence Excel does is it uses a different algorithm for finding the first and third quartiles between these two different functions. Now, I should point out that if you were asked a question as to which one should I go about using, what I will tell you is that the Quartile.EXC function uses an algorithm that is common in other statistical packages, such as SPSS. So using these exact same data for exam 1, if we entered it into SPSS, we would generate the exact same values for the first and the third quartiles that the Quartile.EXC function is. While in contrast to that, I'm not aware of any other statistical package that uses the algorithm that is at the base of the Quartile.Inc function. So my bias would be then to report the quartiles using the Quartile.EXC function. If you're interested in the remainder of this video, what I'll do is explain what are the different algorithms, and hence perhaps what does the INC and the EXC actually refer to. And when you have two different forms of the same formula or the same function in Excel or any stat package, you should ask what is the algorithm that is used in both and which one is the most appropriate for the data that I have. And we'll try to answer that question in a few moments.